Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to Looking Ahead, where we look and reflect about what happened in Japan and get us excited about how post-rotation could reflect. Today's video is Lost Box 2 Powerful. It just won the biggest tournament in Japan, the Japan Championships, with over 3,000 players. An incredible achievement for a deck which has kind of been like not winning as much, but is as powerful as we thought. So before we get on to that, let's look at the City League first of all. This is the graph about how it did the Monday to Friday before the event. We can see Giratina's numbers started to increase again with 31. Miraidon, Lost Box, Mew, and Lugia all about similar percentage, but Mew was about that anyway, but not as like smaller. It's weird to see it is the fifth most popular deck getting into top 8. None of these have really changed too much. You can see the numbers a lot smaller this week, but I think they still reflect about it. Like Giratina looking at 31 kind of looks like it could be the more popular deck, getting back to that level where Mew was so dominant last week. Now Giratina is kind of clawing back. And let's have a look at the top 6 decks. And we can see that as Giratina and Miraidon have gone back up 2 places. And Mew and Lugia have gone down places when they were the top 2 last week, which is like, I love to see how much the format is still evolving. Nothing has changed between these 6 decks. I feel like we're always just going to see these 6 decks to be the more powerful ones until we get triple beat. But right now, yeah, Giratina is in the front running, looking like it did incredibly well with 6 wins. Miraidon and Mew tied with 5, but Miraidon had more top 2s. And then Arceus box increased. Again, the most popular Arceus build is still with Giratina, but I'm always trying to avoid the two because I want to see some differentiation between the two. Lugia did go down, and Lost Box, despite it winning, only was in 6 of 1 win. It only came up there to be 6th place because it had more second place and top 4s than something like Gardevoir and Rapid Box did. So I just wanted to give a brief showcase to talk about what actually the meta was looking like a few days beforehand. It was looking very promising for Miraidon and Giratina going in, but how did that actually reflect? So it was the Champions League in Anakin, and there were 3,200 players just in the Masters division. Like they even had an expanded tournament in the Masters, which had 700 players. Nearly 4,000 Masters players were at this event, which is insane. And they all do single round. They do best of 1. So they had day 1 with 9 rounds, day 2 with 5 rounds, and then they do a top 16 single elimination, where I believe then it goes to a best of 3 when it gets to top 16. Similar to how we do top 8, but they go down to top 16. And if we have a look at what actually did well, Lost Box won the event with Gardevoir coming second. And if we just looked at what did well in City League, Gardevoir wasn't even on the contention, and Lost Box was right down at the bottom of being 6. So it's really nice to see that these two have actually got the win and did really, really well. And we'll go over their list very, very shortly. Gardevoir, I really like having in second place. It showed that EXs were really strong and still are. And stage 2s can do really well. And I think there's a really good prevalence to show how the format has evolved and how it can adapt as time goes on. Top 4s, there was a Mew, but there was a Lost Box with Yveltal from Celebrations, the Cry of Destruction, which really helps against your Mew and your Lugia matchups. Then the top 8, 16, I didn't find too many of a list, but there was a lot of Lugia, Lost Zone Tina, and Mew. There was a couple normal Lost Box as well. But that's kind of where if you're wondering where the Giratinas and Lugias were, they were there. They just didn't get as far as you would have thought. So let's have a look at their meta. I did do some rough translations about what each deck was to kind of give you more visual effect. But if you want to see where Silver Link came from, it'll be in the description again. Similar where Other Wing, I will link every single thing I've used. So out of the tournament, Lost Zone Giratina was the most popular deck, being nearly 18% of the meta, which was about 300 decks. I'm not surprised too much by this. I've seen how popular it's been converting the most in top 8. It was no surprise that this has actually won. It did incredibly well. The only surprise was it didn't win. Lugia being about nearly 17%. Again, I'm not exactly surprised. I did talk about last week. I did see Lugia is going to be on a rise, and I thought it would do very well. It didn't do as well as I thought it would do compared to what it did in Thailand, but it did incredibly well, being like nearly 17%, and Mew being 15. So basically, nearly 50% of the meta is decks we already have right now in the standard format, which have performed really, really well. I'm a big fan to see this Mew deck doing well, and the Mew which actually got into the top 8 was Fusion Strike, not the Turbo build, which we're always used to. And Miraidon is there at 14. I think this is a good indication that Miraidon is an incredibly powerful deck. It's incredibly strong, and especially having the utilization where it can flood the board with Pokemon as quick as possible, can dish out nearly 300 damage with your Regieleki VMAXs, and you can go between your Raikus and Miraidons to attack, and having Klefki to help the setup is really good. Nearly only 12% were Lost Zone box. So a big drop off from the 16, which we're used to and we've been seeing more recently. Going down to this, I think more decks are more favored towards bigger and better matchup. Like your Lugias and your Lost Zone Tina and Muse have a much more broader matchup and can tech around some of the things. Whereas Lost Box, you're always trying to think, okay, I need to have a Raikou or I need to have a Zamazenta, I need to have a Drapion, I need to have a Zapdos, like I'm worried about Miraidon and stuff like this. Whereas Lugia and Giratina and Mew can really just hit hard, whereas Lost Box is a lot more teching, so people probably went more for safety net. That's why Lost Zone wasn't as popular. And then Arceus Giratina nearly 8%. So if you add both Giratinas together, that's nearly 25% of the meta. So it's still really, really prevalent and really, really strong. Giratina is, but it's no Lugia numbers where we're seeing like 25, like 30% of day one meta. Like I like seeing more of a variety, but 50% of the meta was in nearly 3 decks. And then some of the other ones, I didn't see what some of the translation were, but Gardevoir was 2.6%, and the Rapid Strike box, which I showcased a few weeks ago, which is becoming a lot more popular now, got in at 1.4%. Fun thing to note with this, apparently Arceus Giratina had the highest increase of play it's seen in a while at this tournament. People may want to have that more safety net of the Arceus accelerating the Giratina instead of relying on the Comfey, which can be really shut off by Klefki's, which I'm going to go on to soon, because Klefki was nowhere near at all some of the tournament. So let's look at the winning list. I really like this list. It's very nice and very simple. It plays around with your loads of having some single price attackers like your Cramorant, your Sableye, and your Zamazenta, and also utilizes some, Snorlax, and also utilizes some 2 prices like your Raikou to help with your Lugia matchup and your Drapion to help with Mew. And also, fun fact, it can attack into Single Strike and Rapid Strike. That's what the ability says. So you can have like 1 or 2 energies attached to it and attack into like Urshifus or Tyranitar, which is really, really fun. I'm not going to dive too much into depth to this because I plan on doing a deck profile, kind of discussing about why I feel like each card will be utilized. That should be released on Wednesday, so tune around for that video soon. I think I really like going back to having the Raihans and the Clara. I think Raihan is incredibly powerful just to utilize and get those energy from the discard pile, which would be discarded for retreating or Greninja. And Clara as well, so you can get your Sableye back or your Comfeys. The thing I love about this, and I think why this deck is doing so well, is we see Sky Steel Stone. You can really incredibly doing some good job with this because everything is basics, and you plays only 2Vs. You just attach it to one of your Drapion or Raikou, and you guarantee you get an additional 1 price card. So your Drapions can get 4 price cards to go for Mew, go around your Roxanne, KO a Genesect, Sky Steel Stone Drapion, KO Mew VMAX, boom, that's game. Raikou helps you against Lugia, sometimes helps you against like a Miraidon list, getting you some other cards especially with Regieleki. You can probably use that with like your single price attackers, like your Zamazenta and Snorlax, getting 4 price cards that way. I really like this, and I just think it's a really powerful inclusion. And the Lost Vacuum, so you can get some additional cards in the Lost Zone if you're under ability lock. And there was no abilities block really at all if you look at the other decks. Second place deck was Gardevoir. I really like this deck. It's very similar to one I showcased a few weeks back, but it is heavy reliant on the Gardevoir from Chilling Reign, which it lets you look at the top 2 cards of your deck. If there's energies, attach them to your Pokemon. And then it's similar to Zacian, where I think it's 60 plus 20 for each psychic energy. The idea of this deck, you want to discard as many cards as psychic energy as possible with your trade with Curlier. You also have the water duplicates one, so you can get as many Curliers out as possible. And then you use like your Gardevoir EX when you evolve up into it to attack hard with Gardevoir, like baby Gardevoir and Zacian. It's really fun to see in first and second place we see a Zamazenta and a Zacian, which is really quite funny, and especially because it's new games. We also play some really interesting cards. I like the Mew, so you can guarantee get any of the item cards you may see, or you can also use you have 2 different types of the ropes, the one that does certain damage and the one that can switch to the bench. I really like that. And also the really lovely, I'm literally blanking on it. It's Cresselia to do some healing and moving some damage from one of your guys, which you load up with Gardevoir, to one of your opponent's bench side. It's really, really good. Similar to the other one, it does play Sky Steel Stone, and you only play 1V, and you only got to attack with it. It's your Zacian. So we can load this, pretty much you want to load this one up, Sky Steel Stone, get the full price knockout on a Mew, or a Regieleki VMAX, or even a Lugia. You get 3 prizes that way. It works really well. Greninja, I think, is really good as your Radiant. Again, ways to discard the psychic energies to power up Gardevoir's ability, and Manaphy to protect your little Roltzes, because they can easily get KO'd by Greninjas, like I just talked about. So on the sport account, very similar to what I talked about last time, we do run a heavy version of Judge. Judge, I think, is really good. You want to be as disruptive as possible because you're drawing as much with your Curliers. I feel like it's fun to see Worker just to get that discard of the stadiums, because you do run some good stadiums. The Temple of Sinnoh really shuts down your Lugias, which is pretty much a big matchup against this. You can really struggle against Tyranitar and Collapse. You can really help like limit to your opponent's bench. Items are mainly just focusing on just getting the Pokemon out, because that's pretty much all your items are. But one thing I want to touch about, you do play the Emergency Jelly. Just that if a Pokemon is really low down, you get to heal some damage. I think this is really, really good and really, really powerful in this deck, because you're always going to have low damage, low HP, because you're loading everything up with Gardevoir. Everything's always going to get return KO'd. And I really like Emergency Jelly. Overall, I really like this Gardevoir list. Getting second place is an amazing achievement. I think this is definitely going to put Gardevoir on the radar, and we're going to see an increase of it in this week in Japan. Top 4 Mew list. I just showcased Mew. I've done so much talking about Mew, always about the turbo build. No. This is fusion build, but only 1 Meloetta. Very interesting, especially because it plays only 1 Nest Ball and 1 Feather Ball instead of like 2 of each, which is kind of what I like to see, but heavy on the Ultra Ball and VIP paths. Do play some Judges. Do play the 3 path as well as the 4 Lost Vacuum. So you are still disruptive. So it's still the disruptive Mew that we know and love, which does incredibly well, but it still utilizes Meloetta as a single price attacker. Kind of the only thing I would struggle with this list is it just play a lower count of Ilsa Sparkle that I would like, and Meloetta. I would have liked maybe 1 more Meloetta, maybe a Ilsa Sparkle, maybe cut down maybe a Lost Vacuum or a Path. But again, it's still really well. This person just get 3rd place overall in the standings. So nothing really to talk about too much, except it's Mew. It's really, really powerful. And the other top 4 list is this Lost Box with Yveltal. And it has Zapdos. And you're looking at this and going, what the freaking heck is this? I really like the Yveltal. The Yveltal helps you against Mew. We just saw a whole deck all about special energies, so we can get rid of all those energies. It also helps against Lugia to an extent. You do have to be careful against Lugia. They do play Urn of Fatality, but then you're making them dig for Urn of Fatality, which is why I think this Yveltal is a really good inclusion. And hire out to Pokegear, so you can guarantee that turn 1 Chorus's Experiment run if you go second. Again, this plays the 2 Clara, 2 Raihan. I'm a huge fan of this, especially the switching cards, because it does play the switch instead of a skate rope, kind of trying to go on them or switching your side. I think Raihan is just so strong, and I'm a huge fan of it, especially with the energy count as well. I really love this deck. And to round it all up, it does play a Sky Steel Stone. One thing I really love about this, because all the top 4 decks, they didn't play any V-Star Pokemon to use their attack, but they all play a V-Star like power like tool card. It really shows how powerful these cards are and how much they can affect the gameplay. And Sky Steel Stone really helps you with your Drapions and your Zapdoses to get those KOs and extra prizes against your Regielekis and your why am I blanking? I literally said it, Mew. Again, nothing too special about this list. I really like this. It does go back to a 2-2 like kind of split of Sableye and Cramorant. And overall, really, really powerful. I really like this deck. And it's definitely something I want to try out. And another thing that came out of this list was there was a new control archetype, which is get day 2. The idea of this is you sit there with Snorlax, the one that you can't get and your opponent can't retreat, and you just win that way. You play Pidgeot, so you never deck out. You have your Rotom V and V-Star. Made the V, so you guarantee you get to draw as many, like you just end your turn by drawing 3, so you always, like your new Gormandai's Snorlax, so you always get to draw some cards. The Snorlax, your opponent can't like do any retreating aspects. That's why we're playing like there's so many, like you play 3 bosses, you play cross switches, you play catches. You're always trying to catch up as many of the opponent's bench as possible. And you can get some prizes with Zapdos. It's only if they have like a full failed bench. That's why I play Sky Steel Stone to help against some Miraidons and get KOs against even some Arceuses. But yeah, really utilizing the Avon card so you can get as many of any item cards you might want or need. Get your switching cards, get your Sky Steel Stone you might have. And the Pidgeot is really, really nice as well. I'm a huge fan of this. I don't know too much about control, but I like to see that there was an aspect of control in the list that had some good success into getting day 2 on the event. Again, I will post any links to this in the description. And if you want to know where more, follow these guys on Twitter. It's incredibly nice to see some new intervention. But I'm not going to end it now because there was a tournament happening in Taiwan, and I just am getting some more translations a little bit. And what I found funny is there was 377 players, and the exact same result happened who won and what came second with Lost Box and Gardevoir. I found that incredibly interesting that literally a day before the results were posted, we had the same thing happen in Taiwan, which I really found was quite interesting, and I really liked it. And even there was a Mew VMAX, which also got in top 4, similar to what just happened, but then there was Lost Zone Tina, and then with this one, nearly every single top 8 was a Lost Zone deck. So there was so many Lost Zones, kind of showing how powerful Lost Zone is, right? Going into the format. And I really like that to see that we are seeing some innovations. We're seeing that Lost Box really is what people are going with when they go into these tournaments. Some of the top 16, didn't know what most of those were. Again, leave a link to the description because it was a little bit small what deck were. But there was an Arceus like Firebox Armarouge, which is the one just down the bottom left, which was an interesting inclusion, which got to top 16. So that is a little rundown about what decks did well, some little thoughts about it, and kind of what we could see from Japan. I do think looking forward, we are going to see a big increase in teching against Lost Zone. It is very powerful. To kind of answer the question at the start, it won 2 big events this week, and also with Giratina being incredibly powerful, but Giratina wasn't the one that was getting the wins. It was going back to the single prize Comfey deck, like with utilizing Sableye and Cramorant and other single prize or 2 prize attackers. I still see Lugia is going to increase every single time I posted this week. It is getting higher and higher in the percentage wise we're doing well. With it being nearly 17% in the current tournament that just went, is really something to be concerned about, that we are not going to get to the Lugia numbers that we see today in our current rotation, but don't be surprised about Lugia. So this is the short little video, kind of like talking about what the decks did well, kind of like some understanding about the meta, and really seeing that Lost Zone is really, really powerful. And do not sleep on it. It's won the event. It's going to just carry on to increase in popularity. And yeah, and to sum it all up, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please sure to like and subscribe if you're new. Roughly only 10% of people who watch my videos are subscribed, so be one of the new people who subscribe. You can always change your mind later down the line. My name is Charlie TCG. I will be back next week for another video looking at ahead to see what's happening in Japan, as well as some deck profiles this week, looking at Lugia, and Lost Box. Be sure to see them on Wednesday and Friday. I will see you guys later. Bye bye.